Hello everybody, Jediwarlock here, and welcome back to another video here on the channel. Today, we are returning to the world of Azeroth to kick off the first episode of a new series here on the channel, WoW Rocks, where I look at some of the most geographically interesting areas of the game map and examine them from a geologic perspective. I had a lot of fun making this video, and I hope to make more of them in the future, so stay tuned. Also, we just passed 400 subscribers here on the channel, which is incredible. Thank you so much for all your support. When you think of zones in World of Warcraft, you might first think of iconic zones such as Elwynn Forest, Tirisfal Glades, or the Barrens. These zones have lots of character and nostalgia for me as well, but in my exploration, I've found that it's often the more out-of-the-way zones that have some of the most interesting geographical formations in the game. The Badlands is one such area. A vast region populated with massive mountains and dusty plains, not to mention multiple mines and dig sites. It's easy to see why I chose to study this area for the first episode of this series. Today, I'll be looking at some of the real-life inspirations behind the Badlands as a whole, doing a deep dive into some of the specific spots on the map, and doing my best to draw some conclusions as to how, geologically, the Badlands may have existed long ago on Azeroth. Am I probably going to be overthinking and overcomplicating a bunch of pixels in a video game from 2004? Yes I am. So, with all that being said, let's get right into it and explore the world of Warcraft. The most obvious inspiration behind this zone is the origin of its name. Badlands are a real type of geography that are replicated faithfully within WoW, with major characteristics including eroded topsoil, steep ravines, and a lack of vegetation. As you can see, in-game, the Badlands exhibit all of these features. There is virtually no water to be found within this zone, and navigating requires players to maneuver around solitary buttes and across wide open spaces. While there are dozens of different Badland environments around the world, the two I believe reflect the Warcraft landscape the best are Hell's Half Acre in Wyoming and the aptly named Badlands National Park in South Dakota, which has distinctive rust-red cliffs and steep slopes like those exhibited in the game. Similar to many other zones in World of Warcraft, the Badlands represent a real-life landscape taken to the extreme. The mountains are redder and the plains drier. While most real Badland terrain has some sort of sparse, though present, underbrush, the soil here in Azeroth seems even more lacking in moisture and nutrients. Distanced cacti and other succulent plants dot the plains, and the other small shrubs that litter the ground are brown and withered, barely surviving, if at all. There also seems to be some petrified tree trunks in the area, which I'll discuss further in just a minute. As a whole, the Badlands are an accurate, vibrant portrayal of the real landscape present in places throughout the US and abroad, but there are a few other specific locations on the map that I'd like to discuss, as they have geologic and historical significance beyond just that of the Badlands environment. Horde players traveling through the Badlands on their way to Kargath, or Alliance players meandering around the zone looking for mobs, will undoubtedly run across the area known as the Dust Bowl. This is one of the largest, most flat, open expanses in the entire zone, and has several large indentations in the ground which could be dried up riverbeds. This area is probably inspired by the real-life Dust Bowl, which was an area of prairie in the American Southwest and Midwest in the 1930s that was ravaged by dust storms, killing crops and causing food shortages. Interestingly, the Badlands is one of few zones within World of Warcraft that actually has alternate weather effects, with there being dust storms in the area instead of the normal rain. This was a detail in the game that I actually never even noticed until my most recent playthrough of leveling a new character. And it just goes to show how much detail the developers wanted to put into the game by not including rain in the dry environments. On the other side of the map, the ominous Lethlor Ravine challenges players to defeat members of the Black Dragonflight and collect the Dark Whelpling pet if they're lucky. Not only that, but topographically this area is secluded, almost separate from the rest of the zone, with very steep walls contrasting with the relatively flat bottom of the ravine. While I can't really transpose this area to a real-life locale like the Grand Canyon, for instance, this massive ravine, crawling with aggressive dragons, is certainly a noteworthy point on the map. Lastly, in the far west of the Badlands lies Kargath, one of the only Horde settlements in Cosmodan. While the small outpost is of strategic importance to the Horde faction, for this episode I'm more concerned with the gully Kargath sits within. The landscape here is more dynamic than that in Lethlor Ravine, with a more uneven ground pattern and less steep canyon walls, which could indicate different geologic processes could have shaped this part of the region, from landslides to wind and water erosion. But I just wanted to start by introducing this spot that has importance both within the game and geographically toward the nearby Searing Gorge. Now, so far I've mostly been discussing the current geography and environments of the Badlands, mainly as a background, or baseline rather, from which we can travel into the past. Geology, of course, requires one to start at the present and then work backward using the environment to see how the landscape could have looked long ago. Before we get started, I do want to give a quick disclaimer about the inferences and guesses I'll be making with regard to the lore, but if you want to get straight to the science, then feel free to skip to the time listed on screen. So, really quick, when I was doing research for this video, I was looking through the WoW Chronicle Volume 1, a terrific book by the way, on the Ordered Azeroth map, which is supposed to be a prehistoric map of the game world. One thing I noticed is that most of the areas look like they were drawn identically to the current game map, just stitched together as part of the Azeroth supercontinent. Since the old world is from millennia before the current Warcraft timeline, not to mention the Sundering completely reshaped the entire landmass of Azeroth between the old and new worlds, I'm going to go ahead and assume that the geography of the Badlands in ancient times was different than the geography we see in-game today. Let's go ahead and call this the Jediwarlock Chronicle Assumption, or something to sound more scientific. Aside over, time to go ahead and see what the Badlands could have looked like long, long ago. Anybody who has taken a geology or earth science class probably is aware that landscapes can, and do, drastically change over time. Western North America was once underneath a shallow sea, and lakes and rivers present on Earth today may have once been dry land in the past. It is my belief that the Badlands also looked much different long before the modern Warcraft storyline. So let's take a look at the geologic evidence, as well as the evidence present in the lore of Azeroth. As I discussed earlier, there appear to be some dead or petrified tree trunks in the Badlands, which could indicate different, larger tree species existing in the past. But more importantly are the ground surface textures in this zone. The winding depressions in the earth here are very reminiscent of dried up river or stream beds, with different bands of sediment appearing in different areas of the surface. In fact, it's entirely possible that some of the larger dry expanses could have once harbored small lakes or ponds, similar to the current hydrology of regions like Sholazar Basin, which you can see here as a comparison. Additionally, you can find gigantic skeletons of creatures throughout the Badlands, which I think further supports this theory. The wildlife in this zone currently is relatively mid-sized, with coyotes and cougars being the largest species present, and it doesn't seem like the current environment could sustain life as big as the large creatures seen here, but perhaps the past environment could have. Speaking of life, it wasn't just by chance that I chose Sholazar Basin as a vibrant representation of the past Badlands. I also found an in-lore connection that supports this idea. The ancient Titans, guardians of life and nature on Azeroth, set up several bases across the world to monitor and study life in areas where life energy is abundant. The locations of these bases include Sholazar Basin, Ungoro Crater, and even Uldum before the jungle was destroyed in a battle with Li Shen, the Thunder King. Why am I telling you all this? Well, it just so happens that there is another Titan facility on Azeroth, albeit an abandoned one, and one that classic WoW fans will undoubtedly be familiar with. Uldamon, located in the Badlands, was once a Titan stronghold that fell to ruin. And when I realized this, it totally took this geology investigation to the next level. The fact that an old Titan base is in a region where there are already several other clues to a past landscape consistent with the green jungles present elsewhere in the game is, in my opinion, the strongest evidence in favor of this theory. But what happened to cause the Badlands to become, well, the Badlands? I think a variety of factors may be responsible. After Uldamon was closed off from the outside world, its keepers were placed in a form of stasis, and the region no longer had those keepers to protect it from environmental tampering. Along with the Sundering, which catastrophically reshaped large portions of the world 10,000 years ago, the more contemporary plans of Ragnaros and the Black Dragonflight resulted in the corruption of the neighboring Searing Gorge and the Burning Steppes, turning them into fiery wastelands, similar to something like Mordor itself. By being on the doorstep of this volcanic region, it's not difficult to see why the landscape and the life within it would adapt to be hardier and less dependent on water sources. No matter the exact cause of this environmental decline, it is undoubtedly true that the Badlands have become a harsh, unforgiving desert, very much changed from the lush forest ecosystem it appears to have once been. So, there you have it. Some more or less solid evidence that a long time ago you could find a haven of life tucked away in the mountains of Cosmodan, overseen by the Titan Keepers. When I first started this episode, I wasn't sure exactly what I would uncover, but today it seems like I got all the way to a full-fledged lore theory from a simple geologic take on the Warcraft universe. I want to thank all of you for watching this first episode of the WoW Rocks series. And if you enjoyed it, make sure to like the video, comment down below with your thoughts, subscribe to join the Jedi Order, and until next time, peace.